I think we're good to go, right? No, you can just sit down. Like, it doesn't say any name on it, so I guess you can sit down. All right. Hello. Welcome. I'm so glad to see you all. I think this is the most people I've ever seen at a local meetup. So this is half a Haxe Summit right here. I'm impressed and terrified, but oh well, we're gonna make it. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what we're doing here and the Haxe community because so just to see kind of like how to arrive in the community, how to make that connection to sort of get into Haxe, because there's more to it than reading the manual. And I'm super sure that all of the important bits, all of the cool bits are actually not in the manual. So I think it's good to have a little bit of a guide as to where to go. Now, I actually printed paper leaflets for you because I love tech, but I also love papercraft. And I had this new paper cutting machine that I desperately wanted to try. So I was very optimistic with the printing, and I'm glad I was, because I think these are not going to be enough. Simon has a couple more over there, so you can just take one, right? Just take one. Do this like this. It's like primary school. You take one and you pass it along, right? Like a test. What? Oh, yes, of course. I'll mark you up. I'll mark you right up. So what I did there, first of all, was to sort of write up a summary of what the different community channels are that the Haxe community is on, because there are a lot of them. That's suboptimal, I know this, but this is kind of this Frankenstein community thing that just grew over the years, and this is just how it happened, right? This is how something grows naturally, and now we have all these different people on all these different platforms doing different things. And so as long as we can consolidate it, I guess it's good to know the directions. The first thing that people do sort of like wonder about, or what they do wrong a lot of the times, is that they don't submit their issues on GitHub. They kind of like ask questions on Twitter, or they actually on Facebook. I get messages about bug fixes on Facebook and things like that. So if you're having one of those, if you need something fixed, if you want to request a feature, something like that, please use GitHub. It's so much easier. It's what all the developers work from. It's actually, to people like Simon, sort of the only thing that matters, right? So while you might feel like it is not, immediately active, or you don't get an immediate response, I can assure you that even though you don't get an immediate response, your issue is still kind of much more likely to get responded to on GitHub than anywhere else, because anywhere else it's just dead in the water. Then the next thing is the forum. I think it was you, right, who helped with the forum? Was it you? Yeah. So the forum is actually relatively new. It was this lovely guy up here in Amsterdam who volunteered to set it up for us, and I think it's been great. This is where longer term things can get discussed, right? Communication is asynchronous, obviously. It stays there long term. It's not flooded with any other sort of content. So this is a good place to ask a question, to ask for directions, to make an announcement, and really clear up anything else that you want to stick, because all the other channels are much more fast-paced, right? So the forum is actually also monitored by the compiler team and by several other members of the community, so you're very much likely to get a response there. Then we have the Haxe Roundup. To me, the Haxe Roundup is something that I have known about for years. I've just recently figured out that there are people who legit don't know about it. So the Haxe Roundup is a weekly compilation of all the news in Haxe. It's at a very convenient URL called haxe.io. So you should just check it out. It usually has sort of like a compilation of the newest releases, the newest events, whoever's looking for a job, what kind of projects are going on. So I am super grateful, and it's like this super cool thing that we have that just not enough people are aware of and use. Now we have Twitter. Twitter is an interesting one. Twitter is where we post our announcements, but we also interact. So it's good for drawing attention to your forum topic or your GitHub issue or your question that you've posted elsewhere. It's good for giving like a quick shout out or getting attention, basically. It's not good for questions, like long-winded questions that need long-winded answers or support, right? The biggest answer that you're gonna get on GitHub is basically, yeah, you can read this here. Something like that. So if it's longer, go to the forum. If you want to address it, like if you want to call attention to your issue, go on Twitter. Actually, also don't forget to use the Haxe hashtag. It happens. It does. So, so the way I would go about getting a question answered would probably be to post it on the forum and then post a link on Twitter in order to have more reach and have more attention. It's also a good place to share your stuff. Now the next one, the Discord, this I did not know until today. So this tells you how, how fragmented this communication thing really is. There's actually quite active Haxe Discord, where quite many people discuss a lot of things. So it is not monitored officially by the Haxe Foundation, but there are some core developers on there. So you should have a good chance of reaching someone. Obviously, it's an instant communication thing, so stuff's not going to stick, right? So it's good for immediate questions, for talking. It's not good for announcing or anything that you want to make stick. A similar thing is the Gitter chat, actually, which is the other instant channel or instant communication that we use, where also some of our core members are active, but it's also not monitored constantly by the Haxe Foundation. I mean, I can't be every place at once, obviously, but it's there, it's active. I think you should know about it. And then we do actually have some questions on Stack Overflow, and some of them get answered. This would be really cool to sort of like, actually this is more like a PR thing, actually. If you went to go and post your questions on Stack Overflow, that would actually help increase visibility for us. So again, it's not actively monitored by the core team, but it's still a place where things get answered every now and then, and it's a good place to do things. And then the last one is the Haxe subreddit. This I also didn't know about until recently, but there is a Haxe subreddit. Things happen there from time to time. Also, it's not an officially monitored channel, but again, some people in the community are more active than others on different platforms. So like the reality is that wherever you've been active before, you're likely to go again in order to get answers, right? So for example, the compiler team internally uses Slack for the simple reason that Slack is something that every one of them, almost each one of them, had already installed, was already using, had already opened. So the reason why we're not on Gitter, for example, with the core team is because this would require everyone to open a separate app and monitor a separate app, which in my experience is just not going to happen. You're going to be wherever you are already. And maybe sometimes you make, I mean, I notice this in myself, right? I'm on Twitter, but actually really only when I have something going on. And I'm on Facebook because I'm on Facebook usually. And I'm on Slack a lot because that's what I use for work. So the other channels are kind of like falling by the wayside, and that's why the community is so fragmented. And I know it's not ideal, but this is sort of like how real communication works. And you gotta sort of respect that, but also kind of think about that maybe you are biased to one of these channels because you've already been using them, and it's good to sort of like look outside the box and see other channels every once in a while. Now, the actual thing, like the thing that is most going to help you to get your questions answered is actually participation, right? If you participate in the community, it's sort of like a give and take. If you show up in the community in a positive way, people are much more likely to give you attention and notice your questions, pay attention to your questions, and answer your questions. So it's a lot less likely for you to get an answer if you've never shown up in a forum before, if you've never, shown up on Twitter or something. That's just how the human mind works. We sort of like prioritize what we recognize. So if you want to have a reliable source of information, you should make and cultivate the connections. And you do that by participating in the community. It's not a one-way conversation, right? Also, the community at this point is too big so as for the core team to monitor everything all the time, or for even me to be aware all the time. I mean, sometimes people send me messages on Facebook or on Twitter, like direct messages on Twitter, and it takes me like weeks to respond to them because I'm just not on that channel, right? And I'm not aware of you. Just because I have an account somewhere doesn't mean that I actually am aware of you. Now, if you've shown up sort of in my email inbox or in my kind of like peripheral kind of field of connections, I'm much more likely to connect to you, which is also why the community is actually your best bet, right? It's not the core compiler team or Nicola or Simon or me who is your best bet for getting questions answered. It's actually the guy who had the same problem 3 months ago, who's somewhere out there in the community. So it's about helping each other. It's about connecting with each other, and not necessarily connecting to the core team, but connecting to people who sort of like have had the same problems and are maybe like a little bit further ahead on that same road, but can share recent experience that is relevant to you. And you only find that by reaching out to others and telling them about you or like what your problem is, and then kind of like reciprocating, right? And the third thing, what I feel like increases communication and sort of humanity in the community by quite a bit is places or events like this, right? It's so much easier to talk to someone that you've met, that you've heard speak before, that you've talked to before. So if anything at all, try and go to the meetups, try and go to the summit. I know it's not easily affordable for everyone, but really pay attention to making that connection, because that is what's going to pay off in the future and help you get your questions answered, or helps to find someone who's patient enough to sit down and take the time to sort out your issues, right? So we do forget with this sort of like fast-paced techie thing, we forget that there is people at the other end of that line. We're all people, and we need to connect, and we need to talk to each other, which is why I'm absolutely thrilled that you're here. And I'm super happy that the Haxe meetups have become a little bit more of a recent sort of like surgent thing. And really, I mean, this is exceptional. We've got like, I don't know, 30 people here or something. That's all already big by Haxe standards, right? We have had meetups with as little as 5 people, but it's still 4 more people, I mean, not counting you, 4 more people that you now have a connection to, that you can talk to, that you can ask things. So these small efforts are valuable. You should participate. And honestly, don't worry about making it perfect, right? I mean, I had the last Haxe meetup at my house, right? In my living room. It really doesn't take a whole lot. And I mean, no, I'm blessed with a nice apartment, but still, right? You get the drift. You don't have to always have like a super nice corporate setting like this one. You actually can just meet in the bar at the corner and connect, even if you can't have presentations or something. Just find your people wherever they're at and raise your hand, right, for the community. Thank you.